My father kept his old army duffel bag in the basement for 42 years. After his funeral, while my brothers were upstairs dividing his $18 million estate, I found myself alone down there, staring at that dusty green canvas. When I finally unzipped it, my hands started shaking. Sewn into the lining was a manila envelope. The first line of the letter inside made me drop to my knees. "James, you're the only one who's truly mine. Your brothers were never blood. What I'm about to tell you will destroy everything you thought you knew about this family." I'm 63 years old now, and for most of my life, I believed I was the family disappointment. My name is James Mitchell, and this is the story of how a worn-out duffel bag revealed truths that $18 million tried to bury. Growing up in Falls Church, Virginia, I always knew I was different from my brothers. David was 8 years older, Robert 6 years older. They were tall, sharp-featured, driven. David became a corporate lawyer, Robert a hedge fund manager. Both lived in glass-walled penthouses and drove cars that cost more than most people's houses. Then there was me, 5'9", stocky, with hands better suited for fixing engines than shuffling papers. I became a mechanic, owned a small garage in Arlington, married my high school sweetheart Linda, raised 3 kids in a split-level ranch with a mortgage that took 30 years to pay off. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, I'd watch my father's eyes linger on David and Robert. The pride was unmistakable. When David made partner at his firm, Dad threw a party at the country club. When Robert's fund cleared $20 million in a single quarter, Dad actually teared up telling the story at dinner. When I finally paid off my house, Dad said, "Well, at least you're not renting anymore." My mother died when I was 19, breast cancer. It was just the 4 of us after that. Dad, a man of few words and fewer emotions, built what I thought was a successful commercial real estate company, Mitchell Properties. The name was on buildings across 3 states, but he kept that duffel bag. Every time I'd go down to the basement to fix the water heater or check the furnace, there it was. Olive drab, U.S. Army, stenciled on the side in faded white letters. Dad served in Vietnam. That's all he ever said about it. I served. I came home. That's it. David and Robert never showed any interest in Dad's military service. They were too busy building empires. But sometimes, late at night when I'd stop by to check on Dad after Mom died, I'd catch him down in that basement, just sitting on an old folding chair, staring at that bag. "You okay, Pop?" I'd ask. He'd nod. Just remembering. Vietnam? Something like that. Last November, Dad died. 86 years old, went to sleep and didn't wake up. The doctors said it was his heart, just wore out. At the funeral, David and Robert showed up in matching black suits that probably cost $5 grand each. They shook hands with people, accepted condolences with practiced solemnity, and left immediately after the burial. I stayed, helped clean up the folding chairs at the cemetery, drove back to Dad's house alone. The place felt hollow, 50 years of life reduced to silence and dust. That's when David called. "Family meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Dad's lawyer will read the will." The next morning, I drove my 12-year-old F-150 to the law offices of Patterson and Gray in downtown D.C. David and Robert were already there, sitting in leather chairs, checking their phones. The lawyer, a thin man named Marcus Patterson who'd handled Dad's affairs for 3 decades, looked uncomfortable. "Gentlemen," he began, "your father's estate is substantial. After liquidating assets and accounting for taxes, the total comes to approximately $18,300,000. Robert leaned forward. David set down his phone. "The will is straightforward," Patterson continued. "David Mitchell receives $9 million. Robert Mitchell receives $9 million. He paused. "James Mitchell receives his father's personal effects, including clothing, photographs, and 1 military duffel bag currently stored in the basement." The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then Robert laughed. Actually laughed. "The duffel bag? The old army bag?" David was more controlled. "That's it? Personal effects?" Patterson cleared his throat. "That's what the will specifies." I sat there, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Not surprised, really. just confirmation of what I'd always suspected. Even in death, Dad thought I wasn't worth much. "Well," David said, standing, "I assume you'll need a few days to process the estate transfer?" "Actually," Patterson said, "your father set up the will for immediate execution. The funds will transfer within 72 hours. They were gone within 10 minutes. David mentioned something about a conference call. Robert had a flight to London. Neither one looked at me as they left. Patterson handed me a single key. "This is for your father's house. He wanted you to collect the personal effects yourself. Take your time." That afternoon, I drove back to Dad's place. The house felt different, emptier. Or maybe I was just seeing it clearly for the first time. I walked through the rooms, looking at the furniture my parents bought 40 years ago, the pictures on the walls, the life they built. My brothers had already been through, I realized. Dad's bedroom closet was open. The safe that used to be behind his suits was gone. The filing cabinet in his office had been cleaned out. They'd moved fast. I ended up in the basement. The duffel bag sat where it always had, in the corner next to the old water heater. I picked it up. It was heavier than I expected. I carried it upstairs to the kitchen table, unzipped it slowly. Inside were Dad's old uniforms, carefully folded, dog tags, a purple heart medal, some photographs in plastic sleeves. I started taking items out one by one. That's when I felt it, something stiff in the lining. I ran my fingers along the inside of the bag and found a seam that had been resewn, the stitching newer than the rest. My pocket knife was in my truck. I got it, came back, and carefully cut the threads. A manila envelope fell out onto the table. It was thick, maybe 50 pages. My name was written on the front in Dad's handwriting. "James, read this alone, then decide." My hands were shaking as I opened it. The first page was a letter dated 3 weeks before Dad died. "James, you're the only one who's truly mine. Your brothers were never blood. What I'm about to tell you will destroy everything you thought you knew about this family, but you deserve the truth. You always deserved better than what I gave you. I was a coward. I'm sorry. Read everything. Then go to Storage Unit 847 at Secure Space on Wilson Boulevard. The key is taped inside the purple heart box. What's in that unit will prove everything. Make this right." I couldn't. "Dad." I read that first line 3 times. "Your brothers were never blood." The next pages were documents, birth certificates, adoption papers, DNA test results. David and Robert weren't my father's biological sons. They weren't even related to each other. Dad and Mom had adopted them in the early 1962 through a private agency. According to the papers, both boys came from troubled backgrounds. Dad and Mom gave them everything. Then, 5 years after Robert's adoption, I was born. The only biological child. The only one who carried Dad's actual DNA. But there was more. Much more. The next section of documents made my head spin. My father wasn't just a real estate developer. That was his cover. From 1968 to 1989, he worked for the CIA, not in Vietnam. Not exactly. He ran operations in Southeast Asia that officially never existed. The duffel bag, the uniform, the Purple Heart. All of it was real, but it was cover for something much bigger. The documents were partially redacted, but I could read enough. Dad had been part of a special operations group. He'd helped rescue American POWs, run intelligence networks, coordinate with local resistance fighters. The kind of stuff that stayed classified for 50 years. When he came home in 1989, the agency set him up with Mitchell Properties. The real estate company was real, but it was funded with money from his intelligence work. He'd made investments, done deals, built an empire worth eventually $18 million. But according to the documents, David and Robert knew. They'd found out somehow, maybe 10 years ago, and they'd been slowly embezzling from the business, using shell companies and offshore accounts to siphon money that should have been Dad's. The final pages were bank statements, wire transfers, corporate filings. Millions of dollars had been moved. Dad had discovered it all about 6 months before he died. He'd hired a forensic accountant, a former CIA analyst, to document everything. And then there was a separate letter. This one shorter. James, I should have done something. Should have gone to the police, the FBI, someone. But they're my sons. I raised them. I couldn't destroy them, even after what they did. So I'm leaving this to you. The will they think is real was filed with the courts. But there's a second will, the real one, in the storage unit. In it, everything goes to you. The 18 million is legally yours. The fake will is just to buy time, to make them think they won. The storage unit has the evidence you need to prove the real will is valid and to prosecute them for the embezzlement. I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to do this myself. But you were always the brave one, James. You just didn't know it. Make this right. They stole from me, but worse, they stole your inheritance. Every day I didn't say anything, I stole from you too. Forgive me. Dad, I sat at that kitchen table until the sun went down. Then I sat in the dark. Linda called 3 times. I didn't answer. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. My brothers weren't my brothers. My father wasn't disappointed in me, he was protecting them from themselves. The 18 million they just inherited was stolen, embezzled, and the real will gave it all to me. And Dad had been a CIA operative, a real one, with medals and missions and secrets that stayed secret. The next morning, I drove to Secure Space on Wilson Boulevard. Unit 847 was climate-controlled, about 10 by 10 feet. The key from the Purple Heart box worked perfectly. Inside, I found filing cabinets, boxes of documents, a small safe, and a video camera on a tripod pointed at an empty chair with a note taped to it, "Press play." I pressed play. Dad's face filled the small screen. He looked tired, older than I remembered, but his eyes were clear. James, if you're watching this, I'm gone. And you've read the letters. I don't have much time to record this, so I'll be brief. Your mother knew everything. About the CIA, about the boys not being biological, about you being our only real son. When she was dying, she made me promise to tell you the truth someday. I waited too long. I'm sorry. David and Robert were good kids once. I don't know what happened. Money changed them, or maybe they always had something missing inside, something their biological parents passed on. I tried to love it out of them. Didn't work. When I found out they'd been stealing from the company, from me, I wanted to confront them, but every time I tried, I'd remember them as little boys. Robert learning to ride a bike, David graduating high school. How could I destroy that? So I'm doing this instead. Everything in this unit is yours. The real will is in the safe combination is your birthday, month, day, year. The forensic accountant's full report is in the red filing cabinet. Bank records, wire transfers, shell company documentation, everything you need to prove what they did. There's also something else. In the blue box, top shelf. It's for you. I should have given it to you years ago. James, you were never a disappointment. You were the only thing I did completely right. You're honest. You work hard. You love your family. You're exactly what a man should be. I'm sorry I never said that when it mattered. I'm saying it now. Make this right. Not for revenge, but because truth matters, justice matters, and because you're my son, and I'm finally giving you what's yours. I love you, kid. I always did. The video ended. I opened the safe. Inside was a leather binder containing the real will, dated 1 week before Dad died, witnessed by the forensic accountant and a lawyer I'd never heard of. It left everything to me. The entire 18 million. The house. The business. Everything. There were also letters of authentication from the CIA, confirming Dad's service and explaining how the assets had been acquired legitimately through government-sanctioned investments during his tenure. I pulled down the blue box from the top shelf. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. Letters from Dad to me that he'd never sent. They went back decades. One from when I graduated high school. James, I watched you walk across that stage today, and I wanted to burst with pride. You're going to be a mechanic, you said. Some people would look down on that. I don't. You know what you want. You're honest about it. That's more than most people ever achieve. One from my wedding day. Linda is perfect for you. I see the way she looks at you, like you're the only man in the world who matters. David and Robert married for status. You married for love. You won. Won from when my first child was born. I held your son today, my grandson. He has your eyes. I thought about how I raised David and Robert, always pushing them to be more, achieve more, earn more. I'm not going to make that mistake with you. Watch how you raise your kids. That's the right way. Love them. That's enough. There were dozens more. A chronicle of a father's pride that he never had the courage to speak out loud. I sat in that storage unit and cried. 63 years old, and I cried like a child. But then I dried my eyes, loaded everything into my truck, and I drove to the FBI field office in Washington, D.C. The case took 8 months to build. The FBI's white-collar crime division worked with the CIA's internal affairs office. David and Robert had been smart, but not smart enough. The forensic evidence was overwhelming. They'd embezzled $7.2 million over 10 years, used shell companies in Delaware and the Cayman Islands, falsified invoices, created fake vendors, moved money through a network that took the FBI months to untangle. When the FBI showed up at David's office with arrest warrants, he tried to lawyer up immediately. Robert was in London when they arrested him at Heathrow. Extradition took 3 months. The trial was brutal. Everything came out. The adoption, the embezzlement, Dad's CIA service, the fake will versus the real will. David's defense tried to argue that the second will was a forgery, that Dad had been mentally incompetent. But the CIA documentation, the forensic accountant's testimony, and the video recording destroyed that argument. Robert's lawyer tried to claim they didn't know the money was being stolen, that their accountant had acted alone. But the email records told a different story. They'd orchestrated everything. The jury took 4 hours to convict them both. David got 12 years in federal prison. Robert got 15. They also had to pay back every penny they stole, plus penalties and interest. By the time the court finished calculating, they owed more than $11 million. The real will was validated. Everything Dad owned came to me. The $18 million, the house, the business, all of it. But something else happened during the trial. Something I didn't expect. I met Daniel. He was sitting in the courtroom gallery during the 3rd week of testimony. Late 60s, silver hair, sharp eyes. He approached me during a recess. "James Mitchell?" he asked. "Yes. My name is Daniel Harris. I served with your father in 1972. Laos. He saved my life." He paused. I didn't know he'd passed. "I'm sorry. He was the best man I ever knew." We talked for an hour that day. Daniel told me stories about Dad that I'd never heard. Missions that were still partially classified. Times Dad had risked everything to bring people home. "He talked about you," Daniel said. "All the time. His son James. The honest one. The good one. He was proud of you in a way he never was with the others. He knew, even back then, that you were the only one who mattered." Through Daniel, I met 6 other men who'd served with Dad. They'd lost touch over the years, scattered across the country, living quiet lives with secrets they couldn't share. We started meeting once a month. They told me about Dad. I told them about the duffel bag, the letters, the truth. One of them, a man named Frank who lived in Richmond, said, "Your father did what we all did, came home and tried to be normal, but we were never normal again. He loved you the most because you never asked him to be someone he wasn't. You just loved him back. That helped more than anything else." After everything was settled, the trial, the will, the estate, I made some decisions. I kept my garage, didn't sell it, didn't close it. Still go in 4 days a week to work on engines. It's who I am. I sold Mitchell Properties, got a fair price, invested the money conservatively, set up trust funds for my kids and grandchildren, donated $2 million to veteran organizations that help former CIA operatives who can't talk about their service. I bought the house next door to mine and Linda's, knocked down the fence between them, built a big addition. Now when the grandkids visit, there's room for everyone. I found the lawyer who drafted the fake will, the one David and Robert thought was real. He admitted, after immunity was granted, that they'd paid him $50,000 to file it with the court while Dad was in the hospital for his final checkup. Dad had never seen it, never signed it. The signature was forged. That lawyer lost his license. I tracked down the private adoption agency that had placed David and Robert with my parents. It had closed in 1987, but I found the woman who'd run it. She was 91, living in a nursing home in Pennsylvania. "I remember your parents," she said. "They were so desperate for children. Your mother couldn't conceive they would have taken any child. David and Robert were difficult cases, troubled backgrounds. Your parents wanted to give them a chance. They gave them everything," I said. "Love isn't always enough," she replied. "Sometimes people are born broken." I visited David in prison once. Just once. He'd lost weight, looked older, defeated. "Why?" I asked. He stared at the table between us. "I don't know. It started small, a little here, a little there. Then it became easy, and Dad never said anything, so I thought he didn't notice. Or didn't care. He noticed." "Yeah." David looked up. "I heard about the other will. The real one. He left you everything." "Yes. You were always his favorite. I was his only son." David flinched. "Yeah, I guess we knew that. Deep down, we weren't really his. We were just there. He raised you. He loved you. Not the same way he loved you. I left after that. Haven't been back. I didn't visit Robert. He wrote me letters from prison. I never opened them. Last month was the 2-year anniversary of Dad's death. I drove out to Arlington National Cemetery, where he's buried. The CIA had arranged for a proper military funeral once everything came out. He has a stone with his rank, his service dates, and a medal citation that's still partially classified. I brought the duffel bag, set it down next to the headstone. "I made it right, Pop," I said out loud. "Everything you asked me to do, I did it." The wind blew through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a bugler played taps. I thought about the life I'd lived, the garage, the mortgage, the split-level ranch with the small yard. For so long, I thought that meant I was a failure, that David and Robert, with their penthouses and their cars and their millions, were the success stories. But Dad knew different. He'd seen the world, seen what mattered, seen what didn't, and he knew that honest work, true love, and family that stays faithful, that's success. He left me that duffel bag for a reason. Not because it was all I deserved, but because he knew I'd understand what was inside. Not just the documents and the evidence. The truth. I was never the disappointment. I was the only one who turned out right. Before I left the cemetery, I opened the duffel bag one more time, pulled out the Purple Heart, pinned it to the small American flag mounted on Dad's headstone. "Semper Fi, Pop," I whispered. Then I drove home to Linda, to my kids, to my grandchildren, to my garage and my tools and my life. The life Dad always wanted for me. The life he protected by staying silent when he should have spoken. I inherited $18 million. But what I found in that duffel bag, the truth about who my father was, who I was, and what really mattered, that was worth more than any amount of money. David and Robert took the millions. I took the bag. In the end, I got everything.